You are listening to Skin, Earth, Vitality, the podcast where ancient wisdom meets modern vitality. If you are seeking to reconnect with your innate vibrancy, you're in the right place. I'm Emily Davis, a seasoned holistic esthetician and herbalist. Join me as we unlock the secrets of ancient skincare practices, explore the beauty of seasonal and nature-based living, herbalism, and true holistic well-being for you and the broader ecosystem. This podcast is brought to you by Stratum Aesthetics. Head to stratumaesthetics.com to find curated skincare, body care, and other wellness products hand-selected by me. Now enjoy the show. Hey there, welcome back in. Oh my gosh, I am so excited for this episode today. It is jam-packed with medicine. I don't really ever do this, but I actually listened to this episode 2 times in a row as I was editing and producing because I just was like, I can't get enough. I love the way Krista talks. And I was like massaging my face while I was listening and just really taking everything that she said to heart. And so I hope that this brings you that same type of feeling. Krista Buccari is a body worker, a self-care educator, an intuitive beauty guide who specializes in faces. She practices light touch restorative facial and body modalities like craniosacral therapy, fascial work, lymphatic drainage, facial lifting massage, gua sha, and energy healing. She's so talented. When she first came into my orbit, I was like, I have to know this girl. And I swear I manifested her into my life. I manifested her to become my friend. And I'm just so grateful. She's amazing. I respect her so much. I'm so inspired by her. And so I hope that you feel the same way by the end of the episode. This episode is for you both if you are a practitioner in the beauty space, or if you're a consumer listening who is also just really interested in your own self-care, in your own beauty practices. She is kind of like me where she speaks to both audiences. And so I love that about her. And so there are some parts in the episode, if you're a consumer, where we are primarily talking about life as a practitioner, but just sit tight. I know that you'll get something out of that part as well, but then we also get back into the self-care that is really relevant to, I think, every human on this planet, honestly. So I hope you enjoy, and I will see you on the other side. Take care. Krista, thank you so much for being here. I have been an admirer of yours and a fan of your work for quite a while. I think that you learned gua sha with Cecily around the same time that I did. And I think she had like posted about you or something. And that was when I first got introduced to you. So it was obviously many years ago. And I was like, who is this gorgeous, gorgeous girl? The way that you embody your work is so beautiful to me. So I'm really grateful to have you here. And I'm grateful for the people listening to get introduced to you if they're not aware of you already. With that said, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are right now.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being in my world and for following me for all these years. I didn't know until recently when I discovered you actually on Instagram, and I was like, who is this beautiful woman doing all these tutorials and having such like a natural and holistic approach to beauty and also so self-loving and self-accepting. And then I realized that you followed me also. So that's when we started talking and like it became a friendship. And I love your podcast, and we both kind of started our podcasts around the same time too. So I feel like we have this like beautiful parallel sisterhood happening. Um, so I'm really psyched to be here. I'm gonna take a deep breath and ground into your question. How did I get to be here? Well, it was a career change for me later in life, actually. So I've always been a lover of beauty and the healing arts, and I've always read books about eating for beauty and yoga for beauty. Even as like a young person, I was always fascinated by it and very drawn to beauty. I've been an artist all of my life, so I've done sculpting and clay work and all different mediums. I've just sort of been a dabbler of all things visually, aesthetically beautiful and natural, a lover of the natural world and nature, and kind of overwhelmed by the beauty of the world. I think being a very Venusian creature, also, like my chart is all Venus. It's just sort of like in my blood. But with that also comes sort of a perfectionism around aesthetics too. So it's sort of like this double-edged sword, which I know that you and I will get into. How could we not get into that eventually? But I really found body work in an effort to fix myself, like a relentless pursuit to fix myself. So my aunt has been a body worker for over 40 years. She was putting acupuncture needles in me when I was 5 years old. So I was exposed to like acupuncture and shiatsu and Eastern modalities at a very young age. And so it's always been cooking in the back of my mind. And even like my grandmother sold saunas. Like we've always had spa life sort of in the background and wellness, luxury life. But I never thought I could really pursue it because I was worried about my own boundaries with touching people and being too much of an overgiver. It's interesting that this conversation is going this direction. I didn't expect it to, but that was my resistance. I was so worried about using my body too much. And I would always love to help friends and help like people who I was around. I always had like a healing touch. But whenever I would do it, I didn't know how to have energetic boundaries with my own self. And I would overgive. And I was like, there's no way I can do this professionally. So I just kept pushing it back, pushing it back. And then I had a breast reduction surgery when I was 16. And I was very later in life really upset with my scars. It was like that realization that I wasn't maybe ready for that type of surgery when I was so young. Even at the time, it felt empowering to me. Like later on, I sort of had like a backlash to it when I became just more conscious and more anchored in how in my own being and less affected by others. But I still was obviously. But so I was really kind of fixated on scar tissue. And I had done a yoga teacher training and I learned about fascia. And so I knew that there was like a fascial component to scar tissue. And then when I say issues, I was having emotional issues with the actual scarring, the physicality of it, and also emotional from the visual component of it, but then the physical component of having an early surgery that is pretty intense creates like fascial restrictions that have been solidifying for like almost 2 decades on me. So at the time I was 30 when I figured this out, really, or late 20s when I figured this out. So I was in a relentless pursuit to try to fix my scars. And I had also done some healing work to restore myself. And again, we'll get into the paradoxes of beauty as well, I'm sure. And I apologize for being a runaway train with this. This is my first time being I'm not used to being on a podcast. I'm used to having my own podcast and I'm only talking to myself. So I'm like, hold on, are you just
Not at all. This is good.
there's a thread, I promise. So I got breast implants when I was in my late 20s as a way to restore myself because I made a decision when I was 16 years old. I'm like, this is like a really early decision to make. So I felt very restored by them physically. And we can talk about like the placement of them in terms of fascial components and muscle components. And I did it in a really like as holistically as you can do it, which we can go into. But and I still have them. It's been almost 10 years at this point. So anyway, long story short, I was having emotional pain, physical pain, restriction in my chest and my breathing, and my whole body just felt like all this unresolved trauma from the surgeries and from the emotional component around it had sort of bubbled up to a peak. So I found out that I started using a really kind of primitive form of gua sha to try to like grind into my scars that someone was selling. And it made me so red and inflamed and did like the opposite of what I thought it was going to do. So I found instead myofascial release. So someone who was John Barnes trained, who had worked side by side with him for years, was doing fascial work. So in an effort to try to erase my scars, I was like grinding into myself really hard, which we know the body does not respond well to. There's guarding involved. I'm really into the light touch healing modalities, which I also want to talk to you about because I've done it wrong so many times. So I was not a body worker. I was working at a corporate office at this time, but I found a body worker who did the most beautiful light touch healing work. So I went to her to fix me, as we always do. And I had worked with energy healers. Like I was on a relentless pursuit. I was trying to meditate myself like into a state of being scarless and being perfect. And but in a really intense way. It was like a fixation for me that I kind of pinned all my problems to. Like, oh, if I was just perfect here, everything else would be great. Like I really put so much fixation on my appearance, which is like a theme of being a Venusian creature too. So anyway, so in a session with her, she was working on my head. She was doing cranial psychotherapy. I didn't know that at the time. She was holding me in a very static position, and I felt my body completely release. I felt myself turn to liquid, and my femurs, like my leg bones, extended out of my hips. They were like jammed in my hips. They let go and they dropped down, and I felt myself drift into this parasympathetic healing space where I have never been traumatized, where I've never been hurt, where nothing is wrong. And it was just like, it was purely euphoric because I had bypassed the story and I was purely in a sensory experience where my body was uncoiling and unwinding and just letting things completely go. And so I sought out being fixed, and I found something so much deeper because I found that zone. And I'm like literally crying now. That took about 5 minutes. You start crying on your podcast. And it was just like, oh, I thought that was it, but no, this is it. Like the healing is it. It's transcending the patterning and the fears and all of the ego that I had been placing, all the importance that I've been placing on these. So after I saw her for a little while, I got such relief, just physically in my body, and also emotionally got so much relief. And it was the lightest touch therapy. And I was like, oh my God, if light touch therapies are super effective, I can be a body worker. I was afraid that I couldn't because I had to like grind into people and do deep tissue. And my love of skincare, also just loving beauty through the gua sha, the learning more about gua sha, and then the fascial component, I was like, oh my God. So everything happens beneath the skin. Everything regenerates beneath the skin. And it's also your fascia is your like energetic, your emotional body. So I was understanding the connection between fascia, lymphatics, light touch, energetics, and beauty. Like all like over the course of 5 years, it was like boom, like everything kind of made sense. So I sat on this for like 2 years because I was afraid to make any moves. I was like, there's no way I can make money doing this. There's no way, like whatever. And even though I had like, always done a lot of guidance with people just naturally, like as friends, and people always came to me for beauty guidance, like always, just that's like a natural thing. But I waited for a while until my father got a terminal illness, and I had this like electric bolt of, I have no idea how much time anybody has. And I don't want to die under fluorescence. And I don't think that I'm being utilized here the way I'm supposed to be, even though it was like a stable job and I love my team. And I managed a team. Like I was like a manager in a digital corporate realm. And so I had just gotten married, and I was like, bait and switch. I'm actually going to quit my job, go to massage school for a year, make no money. And we're going to figure it out. And then, so that's where I am now. long and winding.
That's okay. There's so many things that you said that I want to get into. Let's first get into your unique practice of this light touch, because I think that I think about you during almost every facial because of the stuff that you have shared on Instagram with this light touch. And so I do a lot of work with my clients where I am, at least during some part of my facial, doing this light touch. I'd love to just hear more about that and how you practice it.
Well, thank you for listening to my tangent, by the way, and also being curious and following up with questions because I'm really passionate about the light touch for a lot of reasons. One, I think that it puts you as a practitioner in a receptive zone versus in a directional zone because there's a lot of pummeling in service work. So I have a lot to say, but it puts you in this zone of sensory feeling, and you're working on your sensory touch. You can actually gain information as well. So when you're working lightly, you can feel what's happening under the skin. You can feel subtle rhythms, subtle pulsations. If you work with in more of a cranial way, you can feel the rhythms of the body. It also doesn't create guarding in the client. And I think that things are tight and tense for a good reason, a stabilizing reason, a protective reason. So when you exert your will on a person with force, you might get that muscle to release, which I actually really don't like to work with that word even. Like you can get something to release, but at what else is going to make up for that tension being released? So I believe in working through the nervous system, which is also why I love facial work because it's like a direct line into the nervous system. So when you create safety through light touch, their body begins to release what it's ready to in its priority order. The body knows better than we do. You're an intuitive practitioner. We're all intuitive practitioners. Or ideally using our intuition. But when we start to work too firmly or work in a way that is very scripted or the way we think we have to, it removes that exploration and that receptivity of what's actually happening. And then the body doesn't feel safe. It's anticipating your next move. So I love the light touch also because if you work with lymphatics, if you work with interstitial fluid and moving it into the lymphatic system, if you press too firmly, you also bypass that fluid layer. So it does, and you collapse the what are those called? The not the filaments. Why is it escaping me right
Like
now?
the vessels?
Oh yes, the initial lymph vessels. So you collapse the lymph vessels, and they can't uptake fluid. So pressing too hard also doesn't allow for fluid to move as well. But I've also, with my light touch, I practice moving things within the body without using my hands now. So I do a lot of hands-free work on myself, on other people, and it sounds very esoteric, but if you can work a little lighter, you can use more of your intention to sink into the deeper layers and create movement and change with your intention and also letting their body show you what it wants. So I'm sort of developing something, I think I might call it light lift. It's working with the directional vectors of the face and the body to release those adhesions, create that lift without tension and pressure on the therapist. Because the other thing about working lightly, not only do you work through the nervous system, so then everything's relaxing and softening and opening for you without you having to exert any force or any pressure, you're working in a more energetic way and you're feeling your body pulse, you're feeling their body pulse. It's like it's good for you and for them. So it's more sustainable for you as a practitioner because you can't work in a high pressured way for a long time. So this takes you out of service provider and into healer mode more so. So you get less clients who want to be like serviced like a car and more clients who want that really deep, immersive, parasympathetic, transcendental beauty experience.
That's beautiful. I love that. If someone's listening and they are not a body worker, but they are really interested in this, how could they work on themselves with this light touch therapy?
Well, Well, it's funny because whenever I work on someone or with somebody and they get off the table, they're like, wow, you press so much lighter than I do on myself. Like when they do their own gua sha, they dig in so hard. The thing about, well, gua sha and massage, it's a physical and energetic system. So you don't really need a lot of pressure to create change. That's the biggest thing that you realize. You want to use the least amount possible. Subtle coaxing, encouraging, jiggling, moving. Like, so if you're working on yourself, like I find that when I am rushing and I'm trying to just like slam in a wrinkle smoothing session or I'm trying to slam in a gua sha session, it actually like keys up my nervous system, like stresses me out. So I would say slowing down allows you to be more mindful about what you're doing. It's really about mindfulness. Like it's really about bringing your energetic intention when you're working. So are you working from a more corrective way, like I hate this, I need to change this is wrong, or are you working in a more like let me relax this tension, let me smooth this out, let me move some fluid? So I would say treating yourself like royalty, treating your hands like royalty, treating your skin like royalty, being kind to yourself, bringing kindness in. How would you stroke a baby? How would you stroke a child? How would you stroke your lover? Like you wouldn't try to like grab their sternocleidomastoid and like wring it out. Like it's not how we don't touch anybody the way we touch ourselves. But even I also feel like practitioners and people, we try too hard. We try too hard and then our hands are too hard. And those two things, like whenever I'm anxious and trying to impress a client, not anymore, but I find myself going way harder than I used to, that I want to, and that I'm designed to. And even my clients, when I do more lighter touch, my results got better. Can I explain exactly how? I'm not sure. I really can't explain other than the safety and the body moving at its speed and on its terms to you're working with the person versus exerting your force on the person.
Yeah. I find that when I am doing that, like I'm trying to impress a client or I'm like, somebody wants their intraoral work and I'm trying to use a lot of pressure. My hands hurt so bad after. And I don't have a very large capacity of how many people I can see. And I've found that when I've been incorporating just the little bit that I've learned from you with lighter touch, with intentional touch, that I have much more capacity for the amount of people who I can work with. And that's pretty magical.
It is magical. I'm glad that you're incorporating that in because the the body will always start to change and express itself differently when it has full attention of somebody. It's really a gift. It'll start to show you what it wants to shed and where it wants to be touched, and you can only pick up on that if you're listening and if you're slow. Like my favorite move, and you can try this too, when I start with a person, I mean I usually start at the feet a bit, but I do a lot of I'm holding on the shoulders behind the person and gently following the tension patterns and just gliding it open because there's that major diaphragm here and nothing moves if you don't open that. Nothing, no fluid can move if you don't open those drains. So it's like a swing, a soft swing. And you're just playing with the tension patterns like this, just back and forth really slow. It almost feels subsensory for the person. And it gets them into that really deep, oh, I'm so held, so relaxed zone. I tried taking massage videos recently, like filming myself in session. I'm like, wow, it looks so boring because you can't really, it's not as exciting or fancy as like what you see on the internet now, but it's all happening inside, underneath, like on a cellular, energetic level too. And intraoral work, I don't do it anymore on clients. I haven't found that I needed to. Like, I don't feel like my results have suffered in any way. And I find that hand pain isn't always from the actual action. Hand pain is working out of alignment with the way you want to work. And that's like my hand pain has been my greatest teacher because I had a lot of hand and wrist pain and neck pain and back pain and even just scrunching and furrowing my own body. And think about it, if you are a beauty healing practitioner, doesn't it make sense for you to be in your softness when you're working? It's so strange to me and counterintuitive, but I know because I've done it, how we overbook ourselves, undercharge, stress our bodies, use force and overgive when we are trying to help our clients like not do any of those things. Like we're trying to get everybody in that soft, receptive, peaceful, healing goddess zone, but we are not taking care of ourselves in that way. And there's a disconnect in your work when you're working in a way that's out of alignment with the energy that your business is supposed to bring into the world. So the more you can work on softening your own body, breathing into your own body, are you grounded? If you're starting to tense your shoulders while you're working, are your feet peeling up off the floor? Are you connected to your breath? Are you worried about them? Are you worried about how they're perceiving you? People just want to feel confidence. They want to feel you as a confident practitioner. And I know you are interested in the energetic zone too, and you're less interested in being like a manual therapist. There's like what's underneath. There's so much more underneath. So this is how you can shift into being more of an intuitive practitioner.
This is what I love about you. And I think you're such a gift to practitioners. Are you in the future going to be offering more courses or workshops or whatever for practitioners who want to lean into this type of work?
Yeah, I really want to. I've been trying to think about the right container for it. I really want to create something called Potent,
Mm.
and it's all about practitioners who want to lean more into intuitive based work in the beauty healing space, like being less about machines and tools and more about the sensory world and working with energetics. Like I actually just, and I don't know if this is going to be part of it, but separate, I just channeled a new healing modality that I've been playing with and incorporating it into my sessions that just came into me, and I've been working on myself, and I've been seeing things like I had a cyst on my eye for months and months and months, and I like worked with this cyst and it's gone. And so I'm like, there's something here coming through. I'm like, how can I help practitioners to even just like from a very preliminary place, trust their magic, and also realize like bodies always respond. You don't have to work so hard because like I don't know if you've seen it, like I've never ever seen someone not change in a session. I've never seen skin not brighten. I've never seen fluid not move. I've never seen tension not soften. I've never seen like people not relax. I've never seen it not work. Does that make sense? Yeah,
Yes.
I've never seen it not work. And I've worked with people from ages 10 to 85. And people people always respond to touch. They always look more lifted. They always look softer. They're always more relaxed. So I think if people, I really, my wish for practitioners is that they realize that they don't have to work as hard to get good results. And working less hard does not mean that you care less. It means you have more capacity to help people. And with this also is getting paid properly and niching and specializing and not being like and holding yourself at a different standard of seeing yourself in your identity as a beauty healing practitioner, and not, I don't want to call it like just a facialist, because I don't think facialists are just anything. I think that it's sacred work. I think it's a really sacred exchange, but realizing you just sacredly hold yourself in your sessions too, and that you're bringing more to it. You're not just putting product on, taking product off. It's so much deeper than that. But I'm actually not an esthetician. A lot of people think I'm an esthetician, but I'm a body worker. And that's because I would have done a dual license if I had the option to do it, but I really wanted to work more globally with the full system. And I wasn't interested in products in terms of like involvement in my business. But that's just me personally. I was more into like my approach to beauty is more osteopathic and more energetic in that way. But I do have a lot of like estheticians in my space who I share with.
I really appreciate that. And I love that you also are a representation that in order to work with beauty, you don't have to necessarily be an esthetician. You are licensed as a massage therapist, correct? So there's so many options for massage therapists. And I just think there's this really interesting intersection between aesthetics and massage that's been happening. I don't know, the last like 7 years where I'm seeing a lot of overlap between the two. And I think that's really cool. The part of your work that I'm really interested in is how you talk about beauty practices as like portals to the soul. And so I'm wondering, like, what are some of your practical ways that people can tap into this idea through their daily rituals or routines?
Mm. Well, I think of beauty, I really love it as experiential because beauty has been so tied up with youth that I think it becomes inaccessible to some and also pressurized to all. And if you can shift your experience of beauty from being performative to more experiential and soft and loving and more of a way of being, like beauty as your being, I think that is the way to really understand your true nature and what your soul's expression is. And so even things like prioritizing your self-care, simple, but taking baths, being slow with your massage, your cleansing at the end of the day, the way you walk, talk, carry yourself, your meditation, really being beauty from a heart-led place, like a soul-led place. And instead of it being this corrective, fear-based, stress-induced response and reaction to societal pressures, can it be a way of amplifying yourself and loving on yourself? So practically dressing, buying yourself something beautiful or not waiting to wear something special in your closet, like making every day feel like you are showing up and expressing yourself fully and taking care of your body as a steward versus being critical of it. Because I spent many, many, many years being critical of my body and being critical of myself and worrying so much about aging before I even saw any signs of aging. It's like my aunt was like, "You're the only young person I know who's like worried about aging." I'm like, "Well, I'm like 37. I'm not like, young, but like it's funny how much I think that that's like beauty care is like aging prevention. It's like at all costs. And that's what beauty has become. But I would love to uncouple that. So beauty is working towards and enhancing your vitality and your radiance at every age because our skin can always glow. Everything can always look and feel more beautiful. So I guess practically it's really a way of treating yourself and realizing that your soul feels held and nurtured and being quiet with yourself and relaxed and meditative. That's how your soul really speaks. That's how we can hear ourselves and hear what your true motivations are for this beauty care. Like question your motivations. If gua sha is just aesthetic, question your motivations. Are you also using it to harmonize your body and work with your chi and your vitality and reduce tension? Like there are lots of benefits that are also beauty related. And I'm conflicted because a lot of the things that are so wonderful for our health are also very beauty enhancing, and like letting that be okay. Like it is your birthright to restore yourself and look and feel more beautiful. That is being a steward of your body. It's not like you either have to be spiritual or you have to be shallow. It's like, how can we blend those things to just be like a loving allowance?
You just touched on the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is that paradox between beauty and I don't know what the word is, but I guess vitality and health. And I think that both you and I have shared things like, how do we ride this line? Like, how do I make it okay for myself to want to be beautiful? And vitality is beautiful, health is beautiful, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to extend your health and vitality through your entire life. I love that you spoke on that uncoupling. So yeah, do you have any like additional thoughts on that paradox?
It's hard. It's hard. I think being accepting and it's like for instance, I have breast implants, right? At the moment. I don't know when people are going to listen to this years later, who knows? At the moment. And they were healing for me. Am I going to sit there and say they're like a health choice? Like, no, but this is the thing. It's not all about health. That's the truth of it. There's mental health and what you need. Like I created something that in my mind that I call the spectrum, the beauty spectrum. It's like you have of enhancement, and sometimes you need certain enhancements to help you in the moment. So if you know one or this end of the spectrum, let's call it left side, is like completely crunch, like total natural, like no hair dye, no nail polish, you know, you live like in a yurt, like that's like total crunch. And then all the way the other spectrum is like Botox, fillers, plastic surgery, like whatever. Where are you in the spectrum? And what's the balance? So, you know, if you are a person who loves to color her hair, maybe you skip the nail polish. If you're a person who you find the balance, like, and as you get closer to yourself and your energetics around beauty, you need less enhancements to feel beautiful. So that's how I'm finding it. So for instance, 10 years ago, my breast implants were critically important to my self-esteem and just personally, critically important for my restoration and my reclaiming of my body as a woman. That was like very, very important. Do I need them as much now? No. Do I still love them? Yeah. But I feel like as you mature in your idea of what beauty gets and you redefine what beauty means to you, you need less things outside of yourself. Like there may be a time that people feel that they need Botox. Like I had a friend who got Botox when she was going through a divorce and she was crying all the time and her face was just crunched in a ball. She got Botox. She would never get it again. I'm not condoning Botox. I think that implants are more predictable, and you know, I don't want to like we're not debating implants right now, but and I'm not recommending them. That's not, but you know, we all have to understand that we've made choices. Like we've made choices, and the choices that we make are not always natural. But how can we continue to move towards a more healthful direction from a place of love and understanding, and not being critical of ourselves of what we needed when we didn't have all the emotional equipment that we maybe do now? Does that make sense? It's like riding the edge. Like I think it's sort of an anthropological view of it too. It's what's feeling accepted and loved and nurtured is an important thing, and feeling like you're showing up for yourself is an important thing. And like I know I'm not going to have these forever, and I know I'm not going to replace them when it's time to say goodbye, which who knows exactly when that's going to be. But I'm grateful for what they gave me, and I'm not ashamed of it. And I think that's okay. And so I think a lot of this is sort of owning your power as well, and just making the best decisions you can for yourself, given your mental state and where you are at the time, and being loving and forgiving too.
Totally. And I think that it's such a vast conversation, and it's something that can't fit in a Instagram square. And I think
No.
I think it gets lost. One, because just as humans, we can find ourselves like on one side of a pendulum swing, and like it's hard to find nuance in there. And I think this is a big thing where nuance is lost in the beauty conversation, especially the holistic beauty conversation on Instagram. It's like pro-aging, you better not think it's bad to have a wrinkle or, you know, whatever. And I've struggled with it myself. Like, where do I find myself? Like, how do I find acceptance versus acceptance on the other side? So I appreciate you getting into that with me and sharing that. I think it's a really important conversation that needs to be had. Um, Getting into the energy and the energetics and personal energetics, you've been doing a lot. And I know by the time this airs, your free workshop tonight will be over, but potentially in the future, you'll have more, I assume. What does that look like for you at this point in your life, like energetic hygiene?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I just want to back up for a moment. I think like with the acceptance piece of ourselves, I think that, and I want to get into your energy question too, but I think that like one of the pillars of embodied beauty is to improve and maintain what you can within the realm of reality. And like I had kinesiology tape on my forehead last night to smooth out my furrowing. It's like I'm not above wanting my wrinkles to be clear and smooth. And if I know how to do it in 5 seconds with my fingertips, why wouldn't I? And encourage stimulation and regeneration. It's like, I think when it becomes a problem is when we fixate on it, when we fixate on the things we can't change. It's like, change the things you can within the realm of reality, and then allow the things that you can't change and have some love and reverence and acceptance for what is. And again, it's like a fluctuating thing. Beauty is so complex and so personal, and people's perspective on how and people's requirements for themselves are ridiculous in terms of like the expectations of the perfection. And I think that with the holistic beauty world too, it's almost another end of perfection. It's like I gave myself a lot of grief for not being natural enough. A lot of grief. I wasn't allowing myself to enjoy my experience of because I wasn't 100% natural, and I shamed myself for that. Why is that? I'm not going to allow that anymore, because there's so much shame on women. Like it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. So can we just be loving in our experience and realize that this is a non-linear journey and we're going to be imperfect? And can you be self-loving in that process, and also moving into energy, shifting your energy around the thing? So when I was really critical of my scars and my breasts, and very hard on myself for having implants per se, I had a lump in my breast. My scars were very hard. I had poor circulation. I had a lot of numbness. And when I started to work on my heart space and work on my relationship with my body and work on and my breast specifically, and working on energetically clearing out the resistance and the holding, everything softened. That lump went away. My scars lightened. It's like acceptance and raising the vibration of the space and the tissues, and really shifted my reality, shifted my physical reality. But that resistance of the thing that I was trying to change was keeping me very stuck and very locked. So in terms of energetic hygiene and working with energy, it's something that I do every day. It's non-negotiable for me, because I am so sensitive. And we talked earlier about, I didn't know if I could touch people because I was such a sponge and I was such an empath that I was like taking on everyone's emotions all the time. And so clearing out people's opinions of your body is also really vital. Clearing out other people's influences and opinions, their energies, their perspective of you. Like there's a lot of stress in the world around breast implant illness. I can't go on Instagram without seeing it. I started feeling guilty for not having it. It's like, whoa, I don't have to, or people would ask me if I had anything. And I'm like, I feel like I'm apologizing for not having an issue. But it's like, no, my body has homogenized with this because they were done in a healing way for me, versus doing out of a reaction of like societal pressures. And maybe it was somewhat, right? It's a complex labyrinth, but the energies that we hold in our bodies affect our ability, our healing ability, and our resilience in the world as well. So I do clearing every day I work with source energy, clearing of my aura, clearing of my chakras, grounding myself. And then I bring in different energies. I work with different energies to specifically heal parts of my body. But grounding and clearing is like the number one thing. It's like the number one thing. And that's like, it's like brushing your teeth. It's just hygiene. It's not like, it doesn't have to be a thing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can take 5 minutes or less. But I think it's critically important to do it.
Do you have a quick practical step of just like what somebody could visualize if this is brand new to them and they're like, what does that mean? Is there just like a quick little like thing
Mhm.
that comes up in your mind's eye as you're doing this?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I love sensory guided energy work because I am such a somatic person that I really love to be able to feel it. Some people see energy, some people hear it. I feel it. Some people are more clairaudient. Like I'm a sensory person. So I like to bring source energy down around my aura, brushing, and I see like a white light brushing off my crown, brushing off my body, brushing around and down around my feet, and then pouring into the ground, and sort of seeing other energies sort of get brushed off of me. And then I bring it through each chakra and I feel into the space. I wait for the sensory. So I'll bring it into, and using your intention. So clearing your crown, clearing your third eye, clearing your throat, clearing your heart, clearing your diaphragm, your solar plexus, your sacral, your base, and spend a little time there until you feel a pulse and a softening. You might feel sensory, like vibration, and just affirm that you're working with source energy to clear it out. And then letting all those energies pour into the ground. And you'll feel shiny and new, and you'll feel like yourself again. You'll feel peaceful, feel calm. You won't be as anxious, because a lot of times we're anxious, but it's not our anxiety, it's somebody else's. So if you were fine this morning and then all of a sudden you have a fear-based thought, that might not even be you. It's like today we can feel there's a lot of pressure in the environment politically, there's a lot of buildup, there's a lot of tension. We might be on edge and not even know why. Not even know why. But it's not ours, because we are such empathic creatures. We're all osmotically engaging with each other all the time and not doing anything to clear it out. It's like we're leaving our front door open for everyone to walk in all the time or just drop their opinions. And it's sort of it's just a way to have some self-sovereignty and to know what you feel like. And I recommend practicing your feeling your sensory landscape a lot. Like if you're laying in bed, just feeling into your body, and your body will show you where it wants your attention. And I think that your attention is, and sensory directed attention is how your body gets the chi and the vitality flush that it needs to heal.
Hmm. Thank you for that. I'm going to be a participant in your energy clearing meetup that you're doing this evening, and I certainly hope that you continue to offer them or offer it for an extended period, the recording, because I just think it's so important for all people, for body workers. We're recording this the day before Election Day, and I think it's so timely right now, but I'm imagining it will be timely for a little while. What is next for you as far as your offerings? I know you've talked a little bit about some things that you are bringing in, but have you thought about what next year looks like or the rest of this year?
I'm trying to. Right now, I've been really focused on my in-person restorative facial sessions, which incorporate the energetic component and the healing modality I was telling you about, and the all the work I do. I really love in-person sessions, and I feel right now I'm focused on them. I feel like one at a time thing is good, but I also have a membership, which is, I think you're in it. You don't, maybe you're
Not in
not.
it, but I actually didn't realize that you had one until I saw it in your email today. So it's
Yeah,
like, oh my
see?
gosh, I need to know more about this. So, what can you tell me more about?
Yeah. So I have it's called the Inner Beauty Circle membership, and it's like a full suite of facial massage tutorials, and we were doing like, TMJD classes and a facelift from bed class, and it's sort of like a series of workshops and a gua sha course. Um, it's a series of workshops, like a suite that you can kind of rent. And then we're doing monthly meetups, and I'm going to reinvigorate the meetup. So it's like a really, 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 truly accessible way to get closer access and to work with me more directly. So I have that, and next year I feel like it's going to be probably the year of supporting practitioners in this way and doing maybe even some hands-on workshops. But I'm really just looking to focus on what is like sparking joy and like lighting me up, and I'm just really open. Like when you're like, "What's next for you?" I'm like, "Good question." I think leaning more into the beauty, the beauty energetics, and seeing where that wants to go, and just asking to be shown. But I really think working with practitioners is probably like the next, like in a very practical way, like really like hands-on in your body trainings in a way, and how to work with the light lift and the soft touch, and see the magic of the change that you really can when you're using your hands in a way that don't stress them, and how much more sustainable your practice can be and more joyful and all of that. So,
Oh,
yeah.
I am so there. Amazing. You are in New Jersey, correct?
Yeah,
For
I work in Jersey.
maybe
Yeah.
listening, if they want to see you in person. Are you
Yeah.
taking?
Yes. Sorry, my Zoom ran over yours. I am taking new clients.
Amazing. Okay, so you're taking, so those of you who are listening, if you are in the tri-state area, new clients, welcome. And then your membership, I will link in the show notes. It's
Oh,
called
thank you.
Embodied Beauty.
Academy, yeah. So I have the Embodied Beauty Academy. You can look at all. I have like fascia, facelift courses. I have all kinds of self-study courses. Or you can be in the membership, which like bundles a lot of the juiciest courses. And there's a community where you can ask me questions and get support and do our live calls and that kind
That's so cool. Okay, I'm joining that.
of thing.
I love this. Thank you so much. I want to respect your time, but I just really enjoy your energy. I love the way you speak. Thank you so much. And again, I will link everything in the show notes for those of you who are as in love with Krista as I am. You can work with her. So thank you again. And yeah. I will be back next week. Until then, be well.
You've been listening to the Skin Earth Vitality podcast. If you like what you heard today, consider giving me a 5-star rating. It helps other people just like you to find the show. You can shop products and find all of my offerings on my website, stratumaesthetics.com, and follow me on my social channels at Stratum Aesthetics.